Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, namaste, bonjour, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so honored that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Two wonderful guests on the show today. Jodie Benveniste is here to celebrate Never, Not Ever, her YA title. And also joining us from California, celebrating her brand new picture book, Brave, is Weshoyot Alvitre. Before we invite our guests into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Jenny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/robotjed. That's bit.ly/robotjed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now from South Australia. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new YA title. It's called Never, Not Ever. Please welcome to the show, Jodie Benveniste. Hey, Jodie, how are you?
Hello, I'm really well. Thank you.
Delighted to have you on. I'm able, through the magic of technology, I'm able to look into, is this your office that I'm looking into?
Yeah, this is my home office.
Awesome. Very good. It's not too early morning, 9 o'clock in South Australia right now. Tell us all about Never, Not Ever, please.
Sure. So it's a YA contemporary romance, and it's about Tilly, who's on the cusp of her 16th birthday, and she's always dreamed of the dad she's never known turning up, and completely out of the blue he does, and it unravels all of these family secrets and family dramas. at the same time, she's dealing with the loss of her grandma recently. So she's going through grief and loss. And she's also got complicated feelings for a couple of boys in her life, including one of her best friends who lives next door. So it's a friends to lovers. It's a summer romance, but it's also at its heart about emotional healing and mental health healing. So yeah, we have a few things going on there.
I was going to say, you know, it's not bad enough being 15, almost 16, and then throwing at a dad that she's never met before, and the loss of her grandmother, and these guys that that's a lot.
Yeah, well, it's kind of teenage life, isn't it? Teenage life is a lot.
It really is true. You know, when you mentioned, you know, that Tilly has this yearning for a dad that she'd never met, I can never understand guys who abandon their kids or who don't. It's beyond my comprehension how somebody can do that. And I know that's not necessarily relevant to the book or this conversation, but it just, as somebody that was a very involved dad, especially with my daughter, it just, not only how can you not be there for your kids, but why wouldn't you be there for your kids? It's the most amazing and rewarding thing you can do.
Yeah. So my husband is a very involved, amazing dad as well. And I totally get and understand what you're saying. In this story, it's not quite what it seems. So, without spoiling anything. But yeah, I totally agree. Dads are so important, and the role of the father that can enrich both the father and the children is immense. So I agree. I think dads are so important, and you definitely want them in your kids' lives if you can.
And one of the things I was reading in one of the notes that I have about the interview is that one of the boys that Tilly has a crush on, if I can use that antiquated term, is the boy next door. And
that's right.
That's a very intimidating thing. You see this person all the time, and it's like, yeah, I really like this person, but if it doesn't work out, I'm living next door to him. I'm going to have to see him all the time.
Yeah, so Zach is the boy next door. Tilly and Zach are very good friends, best friends. And so they have this, great friendship, but there's more feelings kind of brewing there, and feelings that Zach is pretty across, but Tilly is not wanting to really embrace because, there's a bit of fear, as you say, of of if you start to open up to those feelings, what might happen, what the consequences might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, is a lot of authors come on and they reveal that their main character is inspired by their lives or the lives of somebody in their life. What about for you? It's Tilly, a version of somebody that you knew?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I not literally in terms of that story of not knowing your dad and all these other sort of family dramas. But I feel like for me, she contains an emotional truth that I understand and resonate with. And I think that's why her story came to me. Because if you told me that I would be writing YA fiction, YA romance, I would not have believed you. Because when I came back to fiction writing after a long career as a psychologist, I thought I was going to be writing adult fiction, but that's not the story that wanted to come through. And so Tilly to me is, there's just that, I suppose the emotional truth, the emotional experience of being a teen who doesn't quite know who she is, who's feeling the loss of someone who she really cared for, and who doesn't quite feel like her mom, who's a bit of a workaholic, fully understands her. And it's not that I experienced all of those things in my life, but just that I think we've all had versions of that in our life.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that you didn't think you'd be writing YA titles. What did you envision yourself writing?
Yeah, so I think like back when I was a young person, I think my first love, my first sort of, I suppose, big dream was to be a writer. And then I sort of, chucked that out the window the older I got, and as I got into college, university, and thought, oh no, I need a serious career. I can't be a writer. So I studied psychology and became a psychologist. But the writing never left me. And I did write in many forms across my career, a lot of nonfiction. But then the fiction just kept coming back at me. And I really did ignore it as long as I could, until it was just not possible anymore. And so then it was a process of, okay, well, what are we going to write? What are we going to write about? And it felt like I needed to just sort of sit in stillness a little bit and see what felt really compelling and what I was kind of drawn to. And that's sort of how the story emerged. So, yeah, I really thought I'd be writing, I don't know. Back when I was younger, I thought I'd be writing literary fiction. And then when I came back to fiction more recently, I thought I'd be writing, I don't know, women's fiction, stories about stories for adults, but certainly not teen fiction. But I just love it. I love the potency of those years and how much opportunity there is to really explore deep feelings and self-understanding and just, the messiness of teen life and becoming who you are.
Yeah. A word that we've used from time to time here on Reading with Your Kids is bibliotherapy. And as a psychologist, how effective do you think can bibliotherapy be in terms of helping a kid work or a young person work through some of these feelings that maybe aren't serious enough to seek the help of a psych professional, but it's really bothering me. I need to figure something out.
Yeah, I think the potential is immense because there's a gentle power to story that's been with us forever, I think, as societies. And stories can kind of get under your skin, can't they? And they can get beyond that kind of just cognitive awareness of something. They can reach into deeper parts within you. They can connect to your heart more deeply. They can I think that they can, in a more palatable way, even rather than, I need to go to therapy. Right. They can introduce us to ways of understanding what might be going on within. It can normalize all those experiences we go through. And yeah, we can explore topics without having to sort of define ourselves around a struggle we might be having or even needing a diagnosis. Through sort of empathy and going on a bit of a journey with a character, we can find parts of ourselves within their story and acknowledge some of those things that we maybe don't always acknowledge to ourselves and others.
I love that you said that, reading can help normalize some things. Certainly there have been times in my life when I was worried about something and read something in a book, not that I was not necessarily searching for it, but see, I'm not the only one who feels that way. This is a relief.
That's right. Exactly right. And I think, I think over the more recent years, we've done a much better job of normalizing mental health struggles, particularly amongst teens, but we are seeing sort of an escalation of issues. And I think that's partly because we are actually normalizing which means we're talking about it more and things are coming to the surface more, which is good. But we also don't want to go too far the other way where we're over-identifying with what are just normal human experiences and and with overdiagnosing where our mental health struggle becomes part of our identity. And I think that that's sort of an important sort of space to be aware of, that we, a lot of what I explore in my books are like just really common normal experiences and feelings to have as a person growing up. And yes, sometimes they require a little bit more deeper work or reflection. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's who we are. That defines who we are. And one of the important things about my books is that we don't just talk about mental health, we actually talk about mental health healing. So we can heal and grow and evolve from things we're going through in our life. And that's actually the human experience. That's what we're meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned that and brought it up. I was looking to bring it up. I knew people when I was growing up who identified themselves as, there was one person in particular that defined herself as, I'm depressed. I'm depressed.
Yep.
Well, is there any way we can? No, it's just, that's me. I'm just depressed. And I didn't get that. But it seems, but those people in the past, now granted I'm almost 100 years old, were very far and few between. But now it seems as a lot of young people, and I know what I see come across on social media and whatnot is an exaggeration perhaps, but there's so many people who identify themselves as this and that and that, and they go through 18 different identifications before they start speaking to you. What do you think that's all about? Is that just a social, like, well, you have 5 identifiers, I need 6?
Yeah. I think it's about the fact that when we're, teenagers it's a period of moving, transitioning from childhood into adulthood. And it's this kind of, very potent time in between. We are in a world right now, as you say, with social media, where there's a lot of inputs, a lot more than there would have been in the past. And the whole way that we kind of come to understand who we are, part of the way that we come to understand who we are is by looking at other people and seeing what they're up to, and that point of comparison. But the issue is when we start to look too externally about what's going on with other people and not enough internally. And when we start to look internally, we actually realize that, that feeling of depression, say, is actually a part of us. It's not completely who we are. Just like if we're feeling anxiety, that's a part of us as well. It's not who we are. So, but they can certainly feel like they are all that we are at times when they kind of seem to take over our entire system, our entire life. But when you understand that, it's a part of me and it's playing a role, it has a purpose, and that we can actually bring some compassion and some curiosity to that part of us, then things start to shift and we start to see beyond what feels too overwhelming or too ever present. Mm-hmm. So I think we're seeing, lots of people sharing online and that is maybe making some people curious about their own experience. But then there's also this sort of desire, I suppose, to belong, and to understand ourselves. And sometimes we want to understand ourselves too simply by just having a label. Mm-hmm. And really we're much more complex and more interesting than that. Mm-hmm. And if we start to learn a model and a way of understanding ourselves that has a bit more nuance, then we actually don't need to stick to a label.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like the idea of helping somebody understand that they're much more than a label, that they're actually a complex person with multiple parts of their personality, and I want to get to know all of them.
Yeah, that's what makes us so interesting. It really does.
What, and I know, we're here to celebrate never, not ever, but anytime I have an expert in a field on, I love to ask, and take advantage of that. And I'm curious if there's a parent out there that's, concerned about their kids. They've seen some changes. They don't want to make the kid worried or set the kid off. But what are some of the things that a parent should be aware of that might say to them, you know what, maybe we need to speak to somebody and get some more help?
Yeah, there's often a change in behaviour that is a bit of a red flag or just an alert, really, I suppose. And, kids are changing all the time. We're changing all the time. So it's not like you need to be overly concerned. But if it feels like there's a change in behaviour and it's sustained in some way and it's feeling like either overreactivity or withdrawal, which are kind of, two ends of the spectrum, then that's when you might, start to sort of ask some questions. And I think, each child is different and parent-child relationship is different too. But it's how can you then just open a bit of a conversation without either, creating a big drama, that reactive drama, or like causing them to withdraw even further. And that's a gentle process probably. And it might be more than one conversation. And oftentimes those conversations can work when you're not sort of sitting across from each other, but when you're, driving in the car or doing something else together where it feels a little bit less confrontational.
Yep.
So, yeah. And I think that's, that's a way for parents to be looking out for their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One that in the car, that is, I think most therapists should just drive around and have their patients.
Yeah.
It's something about, when you're looking somebody eye to eye, it can be a bit intimidating and almost make you feel like I can't look away. I have to look at this person. Whereas when you're in the van or the car, you're able to kind of look out there, and it just seems much more relaxed. And I've had so many intense conversations with both of my kids, who are now wonderful adults, when they were teenagers. My daughter used to come out on tour with me, so we'd be driving around the United States for 3 weeks in my van, and we would have the most wonderful conversations, and also periods where we weren't saying anything, and we're very comfortable together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, story and reading together, which is why you have this podcast, is another way of parents connecting, or even watching that TV show, that TV series together, where you then got talking points about, why did that character do that? And what would you have done? And, how did you feel about that? And they, that's, I've had that with parents reading my book with their teens and being able to have that conversation, not just about the story and what the characters are doing, but also about this idea of understanding our inner world more thoroughly and understanding the different parts of us and how amazing that really is. So I think, story and reading together is another great way of connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, that's the reason I launched Reading with Your Kids. When young parents would ask me, they'd see me and my kids getting along me getting along so well with my 15-year-old daughter. It's like, how did you do that? That's impossible. I tell them, if you think you're going to have a hard time talking to your kids about drugs and alcohol and relationships, the time to start that conversation is when they're 3 and 4 years old. You're not going to talk about drugs with the 3-year-old.
No.
But you're going to start talking with your kids. Yeah. And you talk about books, and it just becomes one lifelong conversation.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think, we do so much groundwork in our kids' younger years for when they get to their teens. And that all that groundwork is so valuable, and it is ultimately about your relationship and connection with your child and your, I suppose, giving them because what teens really need, what all kids need, but what we all need really is just to feel loved and seen for who we are, validated, really, seen, loved and heard for who we are. And that starts, that starts when they're young. And when you carry that through, by the time you get to their teen years, there doesn't necessarily have to be those really difficult relationships. They don't have to necessarily rebel. And I'm not, there's lots of there's context as well sometimes to what's going on. But yeah, that, having those conversations and around the dinner table is so valuable.
Yeah. I'm curious, spending so much time with Tilly, how did that change you?
Well, I think what it did was reconnected me to my inner teen. That was a big part of this. I feel like I kind of buried her because, like many people, the teen years weren't my favorite. They were a bit of a struggle, and I feel like I just, wanted to get as far away from those years as possible. But then I realized when I came back to writing teen fiction, I realized that I still had an inner teen, as we all do. And she was really vibrant. She's got like this excitable, sort of energy that's like where, anything is possible. It's kind of like, it's before you've had a lot of adult experiences where maybe your view of what possible shrinks slightly, but like she has so much energy, and I just love reconnecting to her and to allow her to come back into my life to remind me how much I wanted to be a writer, how much I love telling stories, how valuable it is to talk about these teen years through story and not necessarily through explicit teaching about particular issues. And I think that's how it sort of transformed me.
Yeah, neat. You mentioned teaching. I see on your website that you coach teachers. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've also had a background in parenting education. I've been in school leadership as chair of a board of an independent school. I've worked on many education-related projects with a psychology focus, and I've also been in private practice as a psychologist. And more recently, I've come into working with school leaders because there's it's a really important role, isn't it? But also a very demanding one. And it's to really help teachers and educators and school leaders to kind of get beyond the burnout, the exhaustion, the emotional overwhelm of their roles and come back into more of the joy and the purpose and the meaning, and, coming back into a stronger foundation within themselves so that they can really lead in the way they want to.
Yeah. And are you able to work with educators all over the world?
Yes. Yeah. So I do online sessions. So, yes, available all over.
Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Never Not Ever, about your coaching, and more about you.
Yep. So my website is jodiebenveniste.com, and then I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Jodie Benveniste Author. They're probably the main places to find me. I'm on LinkedIn as well if you want to go there. Awesome. So, yeah.
And the book is available at Amazon and all those
Yes, so it's available on my website, but it's also available on all your favorite book retailers as well. So.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Never Not Ever. It's the new YA title from our guest, Jodie Benveniste. Jodie, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Hey, my friends, would you like to bring a little warmth and magic into your home? Let me introduce you to Welsh Mountain Candles, hand-poured on a working Amish farm in Lancaster County. These all-natural, toxin-free candles are made from palm wax with a stunning crystallized glow, rich coconut apricot wax for a creamy finish, and essential oils for a pure, refreshing scent. Whether you're winding down, setting the mood, or just love a great candle, Welsh Mountain Candles are crafted with care and made to be shared. Visit welshmountaincandles.com. Use the promo code JED10 for 10% off your order today. Light up your home with Welsh Mountain Candles, where every candle tells a story. Join us right now from beautiful Southern California. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Brave. Please welcome to the show, Weshoyot Alvitre. Weshoyot, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
And how did I do pronouncing your name?
You did great.
I've gotten pretty good with names because it's been wonderful hosting Reading with Your Kids. We've had authors from all over the world, and it's just wonderful meeting people from different cultures and different parts of the world. It's been a real blessing for me.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool part of it.
So tell me all about Brave. You're the author and illustrator of this book.
Yeah, I am the author and illustrator. It's my very first author-illustrator picture book, and it tells the story of a young Native American mixed-race boy, and he's being teased in school for having long hair, and it opens up a large conversation when he goes home with his father, and he learns a lot about previous generations in his family and struggles that they had to go through.
Well, I can relate to being teased. It's hard to believe now looking at this skin-colored head that I was once teased for having long, beautiful, curly hair. I miss it so much. But obviously not for being a Native American. Tell me a little bit more about this and what inspired the book.
Yeah, so my heritage, I'm Tongva Gabrielino and Scottish. So our tribal lands are here in Southern California. They encompass the LA Basin, extending out to the Channel Islands, up through Pasadena, and down through about Long Beach. And so this story is really, really close to me, and something that I dealt with my four younger brothers growing up and having to watch them, get teased for having long hair, and sort of observe the conversations that went on with my dad and his frustration with having to constantly explain, our traditions to people. And sometimes it was met with understanding, and other times it wasn't. And so this book is sort of I guess I sort of wrote it for myself as a child, something I never had growing up, and something that I wish I had growing up, because I still see a lot of kids even today deal with it. And so I hope that it fills sort of a void in the children's book system, some support that we need for kids with long hair, and especially Native boys.
Yeah, it's so important. And that's one of the beauties about books. We talked about it a lot here, that books have this magical power to be a mirror, a window, and a sliding glass door, to give kids like you were a chance to see themselves on the pages of a book, to give kids like me an opportunity to look through the window and learn a little bit more about people, and then hopefully giving us a chance to come together.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'll share this with you, Weshoyot. When I was a kid, the family lore was that my great-great-grandmother was an Abenaki Native person from Vermont. And so we're quite proud of it. And that's how we lived. And then about 10 years ago, one of my cousins took the DNA test, and the results came back that we're white, whiter, and whitest. I think it's Scotland, Ireland, and England. And we're all looking around going, What happened to that grandma, that great grandma that we were just so bought into it? Talk, if you could, a little bit about what's happening with the Native American community. And I know that there's very different peoples, and you can't paint everybody with the same brush. But if you could just let us know a little bit in general of what's going on with the indigenous communities here in the States.
Yeah, well, like I can never really speak, for all communities, obviously. And even within my own community, like my opinions and things don't always reflect the entirety of the community. But, I think the tradition of keeping one's hair long is something that is intertribal and that does expand, to many of the Native communities here in the United States, as well as Canada, down south as well into, Mexico and South America. And, I really hope that despite this story being so like kind of specific to my family, to where I grew up and my home base here in Southern California, I hope that the story is broad enough that it can sort of, like you said, educate about sort of Native issues and also Native traditions and having long hair. So there's a little bit more understanding and acceptance in that. But I also hope that it maybe helps bring up conversations intergenerationally with other tribal communities that maybe aren't from Southern California or even California, that share this tradition of long hair, and maybe allow them to speak about, experiences in their own family.
So can we get into a little bit about the tradition and, what that's all about?
Yeah. So, I think it's just not interfering, I guess, with your physical body when you're a young person. We kind of just accepted ourselves as we were in a way. I think, going through the history of, especially here in California, the history of colonization, there's so many aspects of, the way that we were naturally was not enough for the incoming, either the Spanish, missionaries that came in or the United States government. And they wanted us to comply physically in the way that, our bodies were, whether it was being clothed, whether it was cutting our hair and not, keeping those things, or taking away, our language and other things that weren't physical. And so some of the very first instances of us being affected by that and, not being accepted by the dominant culture were through the mission systems here in California, where they brought people into the missions and they immediately cut their hair. And it was very damaging to families and communities. And so the book touches on this a little bit, just the history of it. But, I think it's a roundabout way to just go back to accepting who we are as people. We, traditionally we come from the landscape here. We're tied into the landscape, and, we sort of live in balance in those structures. And I think we should be allowed to live the way that we feel comfortable with ourselves, and not have the dominant sort of ideas of short hair with men, imposed upon us at such young ages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can't imagine being a young person and then suddenly this authority figure comes and either tells you to cut your hair or actually physically holds you down while somebody is basically assaulting you and cutting your hair. That must have been tremendously traumatic.
Yeah, for a large swath of, Native American tribal people in this country. I mean, it was a reality. In California, we have the mission system, which was one of the very first impacts of colonization and sort of a change of physical being. And then very soon after that, you had sort of U.S. occupation, and you have residential schools, which I think are very much more talked about now in the last maybe 10 years. And people are very aware of the residential school sort of authority that was taking place. And that sort of, cultural containment was replicated by the residential schools in America and Canada. But the mission system really was sort of the precursor to that system. And it's sort of a rinse repeat sort of cycle of bring these people in and take away the things that are important to them. And so there's many generations of trauma, in regards to Native people and their hair. And it's still something that is you see on the news occasionally. You see young Native boys who have their hair cut in school by teachers, and it becomes, a news piece. Or just recently I saw a man and his family videotaped his hair being cut because he wanted to become a pilot, to fly planes. And they did not approve of him having long hair, and so he had to cut it for the job. And he was a grown man. And so, there's stories like this that are still popping up on the news that are very traumatic to communities, and I think just go to show that this is still an ongoing issue.
Boy, that there's a dress code for a certain job. It's not something I would agree with, but that doesn't surprise me. But to hear that there are teachers that are going and cutting kids' hair now, that seems complete. I'm shocked.
Yeah. I can't give you the textbook of exactly what happened, but there's multiple news things that have unfortunately, been publicized, and maybe fortunately, because then we're still talking about these things, we're realizing that there's still issues in communities. But yeah, unfortunately, this is still something that is going on. And so, my hope is in putting a book out like this, it not only supports kids, but also supports families that maybe went through this growing up. But most importantly, sort of the way that I conclude the book is on a positive note. And that was really key for me in writing this story. How do I end on a positive note? How do I put out a positive message for those that either been impacted by something like this in their lifetime, or knew people in their family that were impacted by this? But also kids now that maybe are in safe spaces because their parents have talked to them about these things, to continue in that safe space and feel confident and brave moving forward with who they are.
Tell me, what kind of conversations can a family have as they're reading this book, whether they're an indigenous family or a family, a typical family? Although, what's a typical family? But I hope I'm making myself clear. It's, what kind of conversations can we have as we're reading Brave?
I think we can have conversations about acceptance, and accepting people no matter how they appear visually, whether it has to do with the color of their skin, the length of their hair, how they choose to dress or present themselves out into the world. So I think, despite it centering on a Native family in this story, I think it goes beyond that. Maybe you don't know any Native people in your community or your town, and you just see a non-Native person with long hair. That's their right to be able to live their life in that way. And I think that they shouldn't be negatively impacted by other people's perspectives of them or their choices. So I think it ultimately is conversations of acceptance.
Yeah. I hope, too, that parents who talk a little bit about standing up for somebody that might be being made fun of or being persecuted because of the way they look or for any reason.
Yeah. That's another aspect of bravery, right? It's helping other people feel safe. And, if you see something that's just wrong going on, we would hope that people would step up. And I feel like in today's day and age where everything is sort of publicized and videotaped on a cell phone, unfortunately, I don't see as many people standing up for what's right. A lot of the time they're kind of bystanders on the sidelines. And I feel like kids, especially, they're so young, instinctively they want to do the right thing, right? They want to help their friend, or they want to make sure that people aren't being hurt in whatever way, whether it's teasing or physical. And yeah, so I do hope that it encourages young kids to be brave and to stand up for their friends and maybe support them if they're in uncomfortable situations, because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, amen. That's one of the, I did educational magic shows for 35 years around the country, and for the most part, educators wanted me to address the topic of bullying. And in all my research and performances, one of the things that was very clear is the way to build bully-free school or community is by stepping up and helping up and doing something when you're seeing somebody being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so important in such a young age too, to really implement that in, with young kids, because they will remember it for the rest of their lives,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, you said that this was the first time you did the author illustrator task in creating Brave. What was, I know that you're a visual artist, so I'm assuming that you've illustrated other picture books in the past?
Yes, I have.
What did it take to get you to take that step to actually start telling stories with words?
It was actually mainly the encouragement from other writers that I had worked with, honestly. I owe a lot to the previous picture book I worked on, which was my very first one. The author, Tracy Sorrell, she really encouraged me after we kind of got off that book. Like, I've seen some of your writing, I would really encourage you to maybe take it a little bit more seriously and submit something to like either a manuscript or submit something to a publisher. And then two other writers I had worked with too kind of did the same. And I'm so appreciative of the relationship that I've developed with all of, my colleagues, to sort of encourage me to not just write for fun, but to take it a bit more seriously. So Tracy sent me a link to We Need Diverse Books, sort of apprenticeship in writing and sort of tips and tricks on how to formulate a manuscript and getting editorial support. So I applied for it, and Brave was actually one of the manuscripts, the sample ones that I sent in. And yeah, it kind of blossomed from there. I just kept moving along with it. So.
And how did that feel now that you are an author illustrator? Is this the first of many books that you hope to author and illustrate?
I think so. I mean, it feels really good. It feels also very vulnerable to be in that place of you can no longer sort of let the writer, do all the press and speak of the book. Because as an artist, you're sometimes brought into the conversation in promoting the book, but a lot of the time you can kind of take the back seat to it because the work is already done and it's visual. So unless they want to know about sort of process, there's not as much to talk about. But with this book, because, I wrote it as well, I think it also gives me the opportunity to be on podcasts like this and sort of further expand some of the background material in the story. But also it gives me more direction in where I want to take my creativity, I guess, in the future, and what stories that are important for me to tell and what types of books I really want to make.
We love talking about the process, and we've had lots of illustrators on Reading with Your Kids. We have had lots of author illustrators, 3 or 4 who have met for the very first time on the show. So that's always neat. But this one woman was so moved. She was the author, and she started crying. She was happy to meet the illustrator. Tell me, in creating Brave, what came first? Was there a visual image that was in your mind that maybe you played with, or it was just the story, I want to write something about what my brothers and dad experienced?
It was definitely the manuscript. When I applied for the We Need Diverse Books program, it was, all right, you have to hunker down, you have to submit 2 manuscripts to them. And so I had to throw all of my art security out the window. And I entered in a space of, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to formulate a manuscript. And I don't even know if my writing is up to par with any of these people that are going to be here. So I think it was, a very insecure place where it kind of came from. And I wasn't thinking about, oh, what will this page look like if it's turned into a book? I was literally thinking, what topic could I write about that I feel is something that's, one, not covered enough in books. There's not very much material out there, in relating to this. And 2, how can I take a very sort of difficult conversation about something that's maybe not a happy thing and turn that around into a book that ultimately ends in an encouraging way and is something that I'm proud to read my kids. I have 2 kids. And so that was where my brain was when I was writing the manuscript for this. And it wasn't until, after that sort of little program that I went through, that I even considered it being a picture book. And then I even considered what would art look like, to illustrate this.
Yeah. And so what do your kids think about the book?
I think they like it. I don't know. Like I show them the finished project and they're always really supportive, but I also think like, because I've been working on it for so long, it's like, oh, it's just mom's art that she does too. So. But it is cool when I got the finished product and it's actually like a firmly bound book and they can see it all together. It's like, oh, these pictures actually go into this thing. And I think they liked it. So.
Oh, that's very cool. Are there any stories that you're really excited to share through other picture books?
Yeah, I have a lot actually. It's sort of determining which ones would, be most appropriate for children's books and which ones, because I do children's books, but I do comic books and graphic novels as well. And then I do illustrations. And so I've kind of got like which one would be best suited to this particular genre and which wouldn't be. But right now I'm actually working on a book, in relationship to plant relationships here in Southern California, through Kokila as well. And so, I'm very excited to start that one.
Wow. Exciting. That's really exciting. I don't think I've heard of a graphic novel, dealing with, kind of indigenous issues. That might be a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of indigenous comics and graphic novels out there available. It's a huge like growing field, and it's kind of exciting to see. But
excellent. Well,
I can send you some recommendations after we're done here.
Yeah, we have to get some more authors and illustrators onto the show. So that would be great. Tell me, where can we go to find out more about Brave and find out more about you?
You can go to www.weshoyot.com. That's my main website, so I have all my releases on there. And then my social media handles on Instagram and Facebook are just at Weshoyot. And I update Instagram probably the most frequently.
We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Brave. It's a brand new picture book from our guest, Weshoyot Alvitre. Weshoyot, thank you so very much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great talk.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, a great way to make sure that you don't miss a moment of Reading with Your Kids is to subscribe to Reading with Your Kids wherever you find your favorite shows. Subscribing is a real great way to help other people find the show. And it's also, like I said, a great way to make sure you don't miss a moment. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. We love the iHeartRadio app. We love Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music. We love all the podcasting platforms that carry Reading with Your Kids. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at JedLeeMagic on X. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. Hey, we'd love for you also to check out the other fine podcasts in our little podcasting family. Guardians of the Game. If you and your kids love Dungeons and Dragons, please check out Guardians of the Game. It's a family-friendly Guardians of the Game podcast. The characters in the situations are really a lot of fun, and we think you'd really enjoy it. We also have the Connecticut Book Festival's podcast. If you yourself, as an adult, are looking for a great read, check out the Connecticut Book Festival's podcast. And, of course, our latest podcast, it's called Real Magic Podcast, starring Daisy, Calvin, Augie, and me, reminding kids that the real magic in the world happens when we are caring and respectful to one another. I want to thank the folks who made today's Reading with Your Kids podcast so fun, starting with our guest, Jodie Benveniste. Please be sure to check out Never, Not Ever. Also want to thank Weshoyot Alvitre. Please be sure to check out her picture book. It's called Brave. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Skylar Sheree. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.